Hello everyone, welcome one and all to round 12 of SwiftX here in the beautiful sunny skies of Imola. It's the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix round 12, the finale of split 3 of the SwiftX Racing series. And of course, joining me like always in the commentary box, I say apologies to jump straight into it, but we couldn't hold back from the action. Jumping in and with me in the commentary box is Mr. Dean Biggles. How are you doing, my friend?
Back in Italy, absolutely. You know, I'm surprised they let me in. Remember, after all my pineapple and pizza remarks that we had a couple of weeks ago there in the other Italian circuit there of Monza. This is the classic one, of course. This one actually has elevation changes a lot. Yes, it's great to be back in the booth with you, of course. Q3 is over because we didn't have quite the amount of squad that they will be joining us, no doubt, coming the race day. But for now, we've gone straight into Q2, which is the important Q session to get down to your top 10 shootout.
Yes, so we are jumping straight through into Q2, so we didn't have the numbers for Q1, so everyone just sort of set a rudimentary lap to satisfy the qualification requirements and head into Q2, and now we are here and going to be going through the rest of qualifying as per. We do have a few drivers who will be joining us as the race commences, or will join us later in the session, but otherwise we are ready to go here now. So we're on board now. Will Casson, you can see that beautiful new bodied Aston Martin. The cars are finally being updated to their modern counterparts, their modern standards in that halfway update through the season. We're on board now. I'm going to see, can that new aero package ring out any fresh performance?
I love that, exactly. It's still one of my favorite looking liveries, of course. My favorite color is green, and it's got gold on it too, so it's very, very Australian-esque, even though it's a very, very British team. As you said, so Castor, I call him. You know, I get nicknames for everybody. It's going to be the first one to set a representative lap in here in Imola, of course, classic tracks, and I guarantee you those Airbnbs and those houses that are nearby next to the track would be worth a pretty penny, wouldn't they, come race day?
Oh, 100%. You know, say the price is going to go right up. Say Bashford is going to set the current benchmark with a 1:15.808, but Casson is not far behind. Gets a little bit of a slower second sector, but with a purple sector 1, it's potential to turn it around this early in Q2. He's hot on the heels of that Alfa Romeo, and I do have to say it, say the Aston Martin, its original release form, I know that, say, the current body, the downdraft design, if you will, is more aerodynamically efficient, say, better at generating downforce, and as it comes through P2, that's clearly been brought to good effect, but the original design with almost like a Coke bottle shape, that split bottom, I love the body style. I love it so much.
Coke bottle design for a car. I never heard that one before, but Ben, you pull out all the magic words in your commentary box here this evening. It's going to be a beautiful day for conditions for qualifying, that's for sure. We don't know race day conditions because everything can change. And I've done enough of my rain dances, haven't I, this season, as we're into the third tier of the bracket.
So now, yeah, we are. And right now, just on board with the Ferrari. I'm going to see how they do. So they are missing their teammate Cortez, and they are going to have to be pulling their weight for the prancing horse here. And I'll say they have got some good momentum about them. It's a fair chunk behind Luke Franklin, who I believe currently has the Sector 1 record.
I was about to say, he's about to go blistering across the line here and put this Aston Martin on top of the timesheets right there. 15.2 on his dial. He's tuning into his 15.2 radio station, I guess, because it's dialed in pretty good with half a second advantage.
Yeah, what a statement to set this early in the game. Remember, say Q1 written off, Q2 is where it really starts. Say Il Corpi is struggling a little bit, it looks like, on time. Maybe not quite getting to grips with the car at this early point, but they have dropped a fair chunk behind. Erlinghauser, 16.495, puts himself in a good stead. Although, interestingly, they ran on the medium.
That is interesting. Yes, exactly. That's very, very unusual for qualifying. Of course, we know that this year in 2022 that everybody generally always starts the softest way. I don't really look at the tyres anymore during qualifying there, Ben, but that is a little bit of a statement to be said. Of course, only 3 of the drivers will be eliminated from this qualifying session. So you don't need to be that, I guess, risking it for the biscuit so much. Still 9 minutes to go. Welcome everybody in the chat too. I will read that and relay it. I know there's engineers out there, fans of drivers, so please do that. We let Ben focus on the fantastic production work that he does and continue with his fantastic casting.
Yeah, so they will still have to get a bit of a wiggle on. Maybe it might be to do with the tyre budget. Now, yes, we did drop the Q2 tyre rule, so you don't have to start on the same compound as you qualied with. But that being said, you still do eat into your tyre budget for the overall sessions. So as far as my understanding goes, maybe running on the mediums is one, bit of a safe bet, and two, conserving your softs for the actual hardcore runs. Maybe they're just trying to feel out the track a little bit and then go for a full gunner.
Yes, you're absolutely correct. But do you miss it? I kind of do miss it for the esports version of the racing, rather than obviously the real F1. I agree with that, but I think for the esports, I do miss it because people chew through those soft tires or whatever tire you had and you had to start on. I thought that really added a lot of spice to into things, knowing that people had worn tires per se, so you couldn't make the softs go the extra laps that they used to do, stuff like that. I don't know. It was something, but it's not here anymore. So the past is the past. The future is now.
Yeah, I really did think that it did bring some unique strategic options to the racing, and especially for those who are qualifying high, it brought some limitations they had to work with. So, of course, if they were stuck on the softs, as many of them tended to be, then they would have to work their strategy into that. And if you had both drivers in your team on the softs, then, of course, you'd have to meter it out. You have to be very careful as to not interfere with your teammate's strategy. Now, you had to do that anyway in a lot of cases, because there was usually a set optimal strategy for all of these races, but it still introduced an interesting element. Either way, we are here, we're in the now, we're on board with Tim Brinker, and they are on good pace in that Mercedes. Say, Silver Arrows bringing some good pace and really starting to find some good form across the board, both in their real-life counterparts and here in SwiftX. They've been doing really well to consistently keep that pressure up on the top runners.
And the top runners pressure, of course, you have to keep on. Yes, but Ten Hacken, he's the one that hasn't yet set a time, but he's the one that's got the best amount of points there in the championship. Alex Hoster is not in here at the moment for the McLaren driver. No McLaren's currently on the grid. But a fantastic performance from him last week in España by getting that McLaren up there into P2 was a brilliant. His best performance, of course, for the season. And a hurl of points, that was a 16 or so that went his way. I'd like to see if he's going to continue that momentum. Once again, we do have drivers. Traffic, of course, to this track is horribly horrible. So they get stuck in traffic, but they're going to, so hopefully they'll join us from the race and have to race their way from the back of the field all the way up to the front.
Yeah, it will be a tough challenge for them, for sure. As I say, green flag quickly coming out. Ten Hacken getting a little bit squirrely coming through the second sector. I don't think they quite have the pace for a top time and might be having to go around again. It's only enough for a 16.0. That's going to be okay for P7 and making it to Q3, but I don't know if they're going to hold that position, as a lot of the medium runners have now switched to full core softs, as we expected.
And as well, because they basically just skipped through, we just hit the fast forward button and skipped through the Q3, so they would have saved a set of tyres there. And at the moment, let's have a look. Yeah, so what do you think? There's a gap of 1 second down to Korsgaard from Luke Franklin's time. So do you think you'd be safe if you were within that 1 second bubble?
I think it's tough to call. So Franklin got such a big lead from the rest of the field. Say over almost half a second to the next fastest car. I think that gap is going to wane as drivers go for subsequent runs, but at the same time, I do think that if you really want to be safe, you're probably looking more at 7/10. That's where a majority of the top end of the field is wanting to be at if they want to be safe from the Q3 cutoff. Say Hardwick, only driver yet to set a time. We're on board with them now. Say looking on the timing sheets, say only representative as well for Alpine. We're seeing a lot of drivers here who are running without their teammate.
That's going to definitely spice things up in the championship, because teammates are teammates. You need it. And we've also going to miss some of that action, I guess, have we seen, haven't we? The battles between teammates occurring this season have been something to look for, when we're kind of like been sitting up in the casting box going, why are you battling with your teammate and not working together? There is no I in team, as they say. Yeah. Cassie's going fast for the middle sector, but as you said, we'll keep an eye on Thomas. that we're committed to Hardwick. So he's, what, 7/10 down. That's not going to be, on the cusp, I'd say.
Also, they got really uncomfortable coming through second sector. I'd say almost dropping a wheel out on the curbing, say in the gap, and looks to be abandoning this lap as the recharge lights do come on. I think that is an abandon there from the Alpine. No choice but to go again. I want to draw attention though. I say Hardwick gets a 116.1. It is just enough to keep themselves out of trouble. But yes, calling attention.
Got P2 as well too, mate, to call that P1, P2. Go ahead.
Yes, they're calling attention to one, the Aston Martins getting a double, say locking out the front row. And secondly, I want to look at the Alfa Romeos as Erlinghauser stepping in for Liam for the foreseeable future, seeing as, unfortunately, Liam did have to stop racing due to personal reasons. And Erlinghauser's done such a good job from their debut last time to now in the Alfa Romeo, joining Bashford and matching him, if not slightly beating him, at the sharp end of the field. It's a really good start to a racing career here.
Absolutely, and you got to remember too, Leon Erlinghauser in the AlphaTauri, his debut race last week, he finished in P4, and you got to remember he finished in P4 with the extra pit stop, so he took 2 pit stops. Actually, if I'm not mistaken, he actually took 4 pit stops, and Jasper, Alex, and Noah only took the 1 pit stop. So that was damn impressive there for the newcomer in town. So I would expect to see if he's going to come off that momentum Swift going into here, into Imola.
Yes, keeping that momentum is what it's all about. I say here in Imola, everyone's sort of bringing their A game. They know that it's the final race of this split before we take that break. Lapalainen, single millisecond off of their target time. So you know that Haas means business right now. They're down in P8. They're potentially in the danger zone. And with De Boer, their teammate, all the way down at the bottom end of the field, you know that they're going to be having to fight and try and secure at least one Haas in Q3. But keeping it nice and under control, especially as you go up the hill. All too easy for drivers to lose control at that point. And only losing 55 milliseconds through the second sector to a peak time is looking like a really, really good run for the Haas.
He needs a really good run. He's on 97 points in this championship, with Jasper almost double there on 168. So he needs perfection right now. He needs to win every single race. He needs to get the qualifying, hit that car on P1, and his last chance, if possible, to bring it to Jasper Ten Haken so he doesn't run away with it. Of course, Emar still second in the championship, but he's obviously going to pass him soon enough because Emar is not retiring anymore. So that's it, definitely it. It's up to E2. He's also got to defend against Luke Franklin. He isn't too far behind there in the Aston Martin on 86 points in the championship. So yes, he's got to look forwards and backwards, and we know that Luke Franklin is pretty quick around this track so far.
So both the Aston Martins are really bringing their absolute A game. In fact, as they taken to the top of the field and retiring from the session, they know they don't need to do any more for Q3. Korsgaard coming in with a 115.552, slotting themselves firmly into P4. Erlinghauser looks like they got a slight improvement as well, but it wasn't enough to jump a position. We're on board with the second Haas now of De Boer, going to see if they can make any meaningful jumps. It's a little bit slower than their teammate. They're about a 10.5 down, but hopefully they can recover some of that pace as we get further on to the field. To say Hardwick is out right now, so we saw him making way for the Haas there. I think he span out. He's not going to get another chance, I don't think, to go for a lap because he's on his out lap. He's not going to make it out of Q2 at this rate.
Oh, you're right. Noah's in the pits, so he's not going to be able to do anything. As I said, Boer, he's in a little bit of trouble here. Thomas has already crossed the line. He can't improve. And I had to say that was pretty good for Joshua Bashford too. He got that car up into P5, I think, sending maybe a purple sector somewhere, but he's okay. He's safe. It's, yep, John De Boer. That is on the absolute cusp as he crosses the line right now. Can he do anything to get that car? He does. Up at a P6. At least it has to survive. Actually, if Lapalainen, of course, has. So both Hasses are into Q3.
Yeah, so nicely done there from De Boer. What a run that was. I say P6 just dethroning, going in both Hasses now up into Q3 here. And as Larson and Erlinghauser head into the pits, Ten Haken immediately worrying because Ten Haken was on the cusp. They almost didn't get out of there alive because if there anyone, say if Hardwick didn't screw up, if Villacorpi had another go, then he very easily would have been knocked out. And to think one of our top protagonists in the championship to be knocked out in Q2, I mean, that's madness. It's fireworks.
I know. Well, it's happened to the best in the world before, and this wasn't the first time. If you don't recall, I think it was there in Spain, or it could have been even in Monza. He was also very, very close to being knocked out before. I do believe it was last week. If anybody in the chat could remind us, but yeah, he was on the bubble, and this time around again, and woof, give a sigh of relief. Not sure you really want to be starting outside the top 10 going into Emilia.
Yeah, it's a worrying place to be. Definitely a worrying place to be. But regardless, he still manages to make it through, even if it is by the skin of his teeth. That's all he needs to get into Q3. Saying goodbye in Q3, say Peter Locke, Thomas Hardwick, and Noah Ilacorpi in the Ferrari finally. And then down at the other end of the field, at the sharp end, we have Luke Franklin and Cass locking out that top row in Q3. Or say for Q3, with such a big gap to the rest of the field. E2 got very close, but it wasn't quite enough to dethrone them, and it set a big statement for Q3 here.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to continue that momentum.
Yeah, gotta have to wonder on that front. I say whether they're keeping that momentum or not. I say they have been consistently high quality runners, I do have to say. Consistently on the top end of the field. Now they wonder if they can get through, but really, if they were confident enough to quit in Q2 at the top end of the field with a few minutes to go, are they really worried? I don't think so.
Well, that was just to get through, of course, to the top 10 shootout. That's now it's time to separate. You are right, Ben. I thought 7/10 might be safe. No, 5/10 was safe. Half a second was safe. But Aston and Martin, of course, are battling very, very close to Ferrari in this championship. Mercedes are leading it, 220 points. But Artie's on 175 and Aston Martin's on 143. But just behind the Aston Martin team by a few handful of points is a Haas. So I'd have to say we could be coming down to one of those Aston Martins versus Haas battles again tonight.
Yeah, that could be what it comes down to. So we're once again back out here for Q3. So everyone is out. Everyone's immediately, say, on full softs, trying to get to the heat into those tires as quickly as possible, and is looking to get really a great position to start in. Especially in Imola, I find having a good start position can save you a lot of trouble.
Generally like that in most tracks, as you're aware, but yeah, of course, I always say to people, I know, they sometimes get involved in accidents and, bits and pieces of carbon fiber flying off the car and stuff like that. And they get, they get a little upset about themselves and they have spins and moments. And I've always said to them before as engineers, I'm like, well, if you want to solve that problem, my friend, put that car on pole, then you only have to look behind you, not forward. It's easy, isn't it? It's easy. Sounds easy.
It's easier said than done, that's for sure. And these drivers are certainly feeling the pressure on board with last session's top runner. It's going to be Luke Franklin. I'm going to see just what it takes to bring a top lap to the table as they now set off on their maiden run. Everyone's trying to get it.
Give us a hot lap. If you don't mind going on board there for a second, Ben, because I know you've driven this track a few times. You've been here a few times. Give us a hot lap around Imola.
Yeah, so right now,
Benjamin.
I think this is why I was saying that you have to have the absolute highest start position as you can. I say that first opening chicane after a little darting start on the start-finish straight, it can get very dicey. It can get very messy. You've got to really be careful through it. Say a little bit sharp and not quite getting the full arc through the apex and heading into the second sector. It is still purple, but of course it is early days, and really these cars love it when you prepare them early. They love it when you set them up and get them right nestled into the corner, carrying that speed and momentum, because these cars have a lot more weight behind them than previous iterations, so they do need a little bit more coaxing. You need to be a bit more procedural with them. They're not as darty, and you can see there, so coming through that chicane very tight, and right now they are going to be on full steam ahead It's going to be a nice run there from the Aston Martin. So hitting the apexes on all of them bar one. Bashford's going to be across the line first with a 116.199. Can Franklin dethrone it? Yes, he does by a whole second. It's 115.178 for the Aston Martin, with Cass jolling just behind with a 380. And just like that, in an all too familiar sight, Aston Martin is currently on the top row.
Deja vu, isn't it? Again, this is Q3. It's not Q2 anymore. And you have to say, well, Erlen Hauser came in there, but E2 Lapperline and just snuck a little bit up there. So 2/10 at the moment. It's very, very close. I mean, 2/10 gap, of course, from Luke Franklin was brilliant. We do miss you out there, too, Leon Markham. Once again, mentioned because of personal issues at the moment, you won't be racing, and a key member here at SwiftX Racing League. But I hope you're going to be enjoying it there from the sidelines. It must feel weird, of course, to not be out on track for once and have to sit in the garages there, courtesy of whatever team. Well, obviously, you'll be sitting in your team's garage. Who else is yet to set some times here? Big guns, of course, Jasper, Korsgaard, and Luke on their flying laps. Quite sure Luke is sitting on time there, mate. You're on board with Korsgaard, of course, who's about one temp down there in that sector. 2, which isn't too bad, because one temp would put you right between Luke and Cass to split them up.
So right now with Timbrinka on the flying form, as they bring in at P4, it's going to be on Korsgaard to see if they can keep that momentum, really cert themselves into the sharp end of the runnings, as they've got Ten Hag, and right behind them is going to be good enough for P3. Not quite enough to dissect between the two. And Ten Hag is only going to go P9. He's going to have to improve that pretty sharpish if he's going to have a good shot. But it looks like he's immediately going out again.
Just sorry, I was reading the chat there because AJ, unfortunately, AJ did tell me yesterday that he couldn't make it. He has an appointment, of course, so he had to head to an appointment, a personal appointment, which you can't do. And he will be joining us hopefully for the race. And apparently, there's some big guns out there from one of his engineers or something to say that he will be finishing the podium from the back of the field. So anything is possible with that Canadian driver recently. We've seen his form. But that's bold and brave, laying the gauntlet down early. I like it. This is what you want to see in a championship, don't you? Confidence.
Yeah. I would say confidence is something I can admire. Well, I say going from the bottom end of the field to a podium. If you've got the moxie, if you've got the chops to back it up, having that confidence, something I can absolutely respect. Either way, right now. You gotta
remember, AJ's soft tire, like towards the end run, that was ended up reversing the decision, and getting a win. That was something we didn't expect. So anything is possible.
Absolutely. On board with Bashford now, say the second Alfa Romeo, as his teammate Erlinghauser seems to have put his best foot forward and continuing that great stride that they started off last round. Bashford, say, out trying to get some heat into those tyres and to hopefully see if they can get out of the bottom spot. Maybe even demote someone like Ten Aken all the way down to the lower end of the field as we are coming up on the 5-minute mark.
I think you just get one of those, those air blowers, right? Hair dryers. Turn the heat up and crank them, and then just blow me your tire. Did you actually see during the Mexican Grand Prix there for a delayed pit stop? I think it was for the Red Bull. As somebody got one of those leaf blowers and blew it straight into the helmet of one of the drivers. I've never seen that before.
Oh no, it's entirely a standard thing. So you just got to get some cool air flowing into that helmet. Those are sweaty things, let me tell you. You do not want to be smelling one of those after a race.
Yeah.
It is
not
pleasant.
Line right now, Joshy, can he do it? Yeah, of course. If you obviously go to a go-kart track, isn't it? And then you can smell all the helmets, even though you have to usually wear the cloth on your head anyway, whatever that's called. But yeah, you know how if you go to a go-kart track and in the afternoon it's all just full of sweat, the helmets that you have to wear. That's why if you have your own helmet, bring your own helmet. But yeah, and that's just karting. That's not inside a car where Lewis Hamilton admitted, I think the other day, that during the USA GP or whatever, he lost 7 kilograms of weight or something. So that's not unusual for Formula One.
It's not unusual. So you are sweating absolute buckets. They are losing a ton of weight. Now the other thing is the weight doesn't really go anywhere. You think an F1 cockpit by design is extremely small and extremely closed off. You are sweating absolute buckets, but the car doesn't get any lighter. If it got lighter, it would contravene rules. So unfortunately, this is a case where engineering trumps comfort. So
Yeah, Bashford's invalidated, unfortunately, as well. Well, that's just because he's trying to get back there on his outlap. Everybody else in the pit lane, 3 to change to go. So who's safe? I don't know. Luke and Cass, are they going to be confident to sit there? I don't know if Cass could be confident to sit there. Maybe Luke can. It looks to me like, no, Bashford is coming in. I was going to say, it looked to me like he was going to pause there and maybe take another run, but elected to put some new boots on. And now we have that little pause in the moment because it's Q3 where they all sit there. Can't tweak the cars anymore, of course. We're at Parc Ferme. Just get ready to be maybe last across the line. We'll be first to get the quickest time. There it is.
Yeah, now we just wait, see who goes out next. Either way, it's looking like Bashford tried to go and get himself out of P10. It wasn't quite able to make it happen though. I knew if I was in Luke's position, I would definitely feel pretty safe. But if I was Casson, I wouldn't be so sure, honestly.
No, not with everybody on the 210s club there. That's all the way down to Leon. Now, predictions, early predictions out there. Throw it in the chat, please. Who do you think is going to get pole here for Emilia? Now, to me, I'm going to go with an Aston Martin. I had to go with Luke. But then again, I think the surprise might be here for the top 3. And I had to pick Leon Erlenhauser because he's a newcomer in town. And he's been pulling magic tricks out of his Alfa Romeo. So we'll find out. What do you think there, Ben?
It's tough. Of course, we can look at the Aston Martin, see how they are simply indomitable right now. And you can very easily say, oh yeah, it's an Aston Martin going to get pole. It's going to be Luke getting pole. It's going to be Will Casson getting pole. But at the same time, I'm keeping an eye on Korsgaard and Lapalainen. Now, those two have really been bringing the fight to the top end of the field. Oddly, Tenaken, which is one that we expect to be at that sharp end, isn't there. So I think Korsgaard and Lapalainen have seen that, recognized the power vacuum, and gone, okay, maybe I can take a shot at this and see what I can do. We're on board with Lapalainen right now as they're getting themselves cooked up, ready to go for a final flyer. Because at this rate, they will not be crossing the flag at final fall enough to go for another run. So this one is really all or nothing.
It is. I'm surprised recently as well, too, that we don't see Jasper ten Haken putting his baby on pole, even though he's leading the championship. He's just one of those cool, calm, collective operators. They say smooth operator for the Ferraris. Well, he's a smooth operator. He doesn't need to get the car on pole. His strategy works race time. But let's find out, because this is crunch time right now for the final part of qualifying here at SwiftX.
Saying Lapalainen is on board. We are on board with Lapalainen right now. Gonna see what they can bring to the table. So looking good on the first sector. Is in fact going to go with a purple sector 1. It's looking like some very good form there from the Haas. Can they keep it going? Can't be affording to make any mistakes at this stage. He knows what's on the line here. Just can't let that pressure get to him either. He's getting a very good line through the second sector. So not really putting a foot wrong. A little bit wide on the apex maybe, but still keeps it within those track limits. And it does lose a little bit of time, unfortunately, but it's still up for potentially displacing the 2 Aston Martins and claiming at least a second spot on the top row. It's going to be close for the Haas here.
It looked like the middle sector was not very good at all. It's 26 flat and 25.9. So it's close, but maybe not close enough that he needs, but he's certainly going to be somewhere up there as he spins across the line. No, he didn't get across the line. He lost it out of the final corner.
So he just lost it, and I think what happened is he saw that drop in the second sector as his teammate, De Boer, in fact, is going to go and split the 2 Astons. Is going to go just enough to pip Casson and get that second spot on the top row. It's Tebrinka who's going to be making a massive last-minute surge. Neither of us expect it.
Will Casson could be the one that steals this money. May put that Alfa Romeo on the top of the timesheets. Bang! He does it at a 14.9. The only man in the 14 range. And Alfa, well, Aston Martin, of course, have represented what they've been doing all qualifying session long.
They're going saying Ten Haken in all of this. only manages P4, puts in a brilliant run there, but isn't quite enough to get it on the sharp end of the field. And it looks like Bashford had a real rough time because they're missing a front wing and they are missing a chance to get to the top end, because that is going to be that qualifying session over.
Wow. But we did know it was going to be an Aston Martin, perhaps. I didn't think which one, of course. Well, Casson got it done over his teammate Luke Franklin, that has been dominating this one. You go through those results for us, please, Ben.
And what a final run it was. So yeah, Will Casson taking the top spot. Only driver to cross that 1 minute 15 threshold, 14.962. What a run from them. Looking down the field, we have Tim Brinker in the Mercedes displacing the two Aston Martins from the top row. Luke Franklin being demoted to P3 with Ten Aken being just behind in P4. Real battle of the teams there up the top end. Then you got the Haas of Bjorn de Boer, the Korsgaard in Williams, Lapalainen of the second Haas, and then the two Alfa Romeos with the Red Bull between of Erlinghauser, Larson, and Bashford. But what was, to say, Tim Brinker just coming out of nowhere and bringing us heat like that? Wow, is all I can say. Just yeah, wow.
He definitely had pineapple on his pizza, didn't he, before he raced? That's the thing. I guess that gives you a little bit of that spiciness boost. Not spiciness, of course. It's not that spicy to take pineapple. But you were right. Thank you very much, Digital Motorsports, for presenting that qualifying session. That was amazing.
And if that was the atmosphere for qualifying, what do you think we can expect in the race?
Entertainment 101, like we have all season long here at the SwiftX. Hopefully we can see from some of the drivers as they get out there and just obviously, just peel off the sweaty helmet and the sweaty gloves and all that sort of jazz. We know that most of we've asked these drivers before, right? Like most of them race in socks, right?
Yeah.
Not shoes or not bare feet. I think we've already gone through that early in the season.
Oh,
See if we can hear from any of the drivers that have done it. I definitely want to hear from Mr. Casson. Just
we'll have to wait and see.
And of course, Mr. Luke as well, pulling that one. Because this is also, remember, a big battle forming in the championship between Haas and Aston Martin. And that's crucial for the millions and millions of dollars you're going to get. Unfortunately, not from Swift Racing League. We can't really afford the millions and millions of dollars. But obviously, in the virtual world, they will get that for the Constructors' Championship.
Yeah, so that is... I mean, that's the dream. That is the dream. To have the millions and millions, and we can make every single ounce of production perfect and bring the real spiciness to the forefront.
The best production on the platform on this planet at the moment, because you can obviously see from the best. We weren't mentioned who was supposed to be the best, but we are better. Absolutely. And if you guys get a thumbs up out there, if you do agree with us, actually give us a thumbs up, please, on the channel, because I know Ben, myself, and you have been casting Formula One for a couple of years now, and many leagues around the planet, and we know for a fact that this has to be the best. If anybody knows anything that's better than us, please let us know. We will strive our way to be even better.
Of course. Well, let's say, doesn't look like anyone is free to chat to us, so instead we are going to be heading to a short break, but we will be seeing you in just over 30 minutes time. So we've got to get a bit of cool down, get ourselves prepared for the race ahead. And with that all being said, it's been brilliant so far. Be sure to stick around for when the Emilia Romagna Grand Prix here at SwiftX, presented by NordVPN, truly gets underway. But for now, we shall see. Welcome everyone, we are here, we are back, and we are ready for the next race. So, after an electrifying qualifying, now I am just getting word from the officials that they are quickly reopening the lobby. There was a minor issue with the lobby, so they are going to be reopening it. But of course, in the commentary box, I have with me Mr. Dean Biggles. How are you doing, my friend?
Back again, of course. What an exciting qualifying session. It looked like the Aston Martins were going to kind of dominate that one, but
new lobby
didn't happen. We are definitely going to a new lobby, so don't worry about that. We've just been plagued with all the technical issues here this evening, but SwiftX motor's on, my friend, and that's why you have to have a bit of NordVPN, of course, because if it doesn't work in wherever you are in the world, you can throw up a VPN there, and perhaps that'll change things around. Of course, NordVPN will give you access to everything you need. I actually do use it, Ben, and this is not be like that, but if I enjoy a lot of those British television series that you don't get, because I live in the Americas, so it basically throws all the Americas stuff in like Netflix. And if I change to use my NordVPN and I change over to a UK IP address, all of a sudden I get all these classic British shows, comedies, and those series, which are fantastic, and I love watching them. You never get that unless you use the NordVPN services. So I strongly suggest, if you don't have a VPN service, you're not living in 2022.
Well, I'll say those British shows is probably an adequate comparison, but I say, yeah, wherever you are, definitely comes in super handy. And as we get ourselves prepped and back into race trim, of course, goes without saying, but we've got some top tier competitors here. Do
you have a favorite series you do watch? Because I remember watching Red Dwarf. There's like IT Crowd is another great series. There's tons of them in the UK that's produced. Of course, obviously The Office UK version is great. There's like the other one too with the TV series. I think it was a school series that made a couple of movies. And they even went to Australia. I can't remember that one. But anyway, you guys know.
I mean, IT Crowd is iconic. Like, it can't be disputed.
Crowd, yeah. Just that's what we do, right? If things break, mate, did you try turning it off and on again?
Yeah, well, I ended up doing that with my game. Say, the game crashed in midst all of that. So, the turn it off and on again strat does work. And I'm about to say...
Do you remember the telephone number that they used for the emergency services or something like that in one of the episodes? It was like 8119661615555561, whatever you call that, if you need to get an emergency service in the UK.
It's just a lot shorter of a number than that.
Yeah. Anyway, but that just goes to preview, but you're not going to be able to see... They won't see that unless you use the VPN services, mate. And once again, if you guys in the UK or in Europe, well, if you switch to a US VPN, so you just go to your NordVPN and just switch to US, so all of a sudden, bang, you're in the US virtually. And then you're going to get a ton of these series that you never see in the UK. So, and there are a ton of there's a trust of great series that you're going to watch there. I know, I'm kind of kicking in the NordVPN, but honestly, I use it every single day. Once again, I'd mentioned this before in the past. I have to use it to watch the Formula 1 broadcast on the F1 TV because I can't use it here in this country that I'm living in, which is Panama. So, yeah, you need to have it. I'm not just slanging it out because they're sponsoring us. I'm slanging it because it's actually very, very helpful. It's kind of like that. You know, what else? Having the game itself. So there's two priorities you need. You need to have Benjamin in the booth with you, so that's number 3, right, Ben? So I can't cast about you.
Well, yeah, that's true. In other news, we are just getting confirmation that the lobby is now in the process of restarting, folks. So we're just waiting on a last-minute entrance, and then we will get aboard the racing today. Of course, we do have the drivers who didn't get the opportunity to join in on the qualifying, but have managed to make it to the session. And we're going to have to see how they do. Now, I know you have your eye on a particular driver.
You know that. He couldn't make it during the qualifying session, could he? But the Canadian man, the only Canadian driver, is on the grid. Now, he couldn't make it the qualifying, of course, because he had personal reasons to get delivered. But trust me, that man, Mr. AJ, wanted to be on the grid any possible moment he could. And he will be on the grid, just unfortunately starting a little bit further back there. Ben, if you don't mind showing your screen to me, we'll get ready to rumble in the not so much jungle of Emilia, but what a classic track it is. What do you think your like, turns 11, 12, do you think are the toughest ones around here, Aquaminalali?
I think, I don't know, it's tough to call because this track does have so many challenges. Like, it has its own little tests as you go around. So whether that is your high-speed car control, whether that is getting a perfect line through a tight chicane, whether that is keeping some good throttle control, heading up the hill and trying not to get the rear of your car loose. It's a tough act, and this circuit certainly does not hold your hand.
Yeah, it doesn't hold your hand. But I feel for those. What would you do if you had one of those houses trackside there? You can see a lot of those classic homes that have been here since, well, geez, centuries ago. And they're right there, right next to the track. There's no way you're planning on getting some sleep, are you, on race weekend with Formula One cars screaming past at 300 plus miles an hour, or kilometers an hour, sorry.
I think I'd live for it personally, but that being said...
Could you imagine casting? Oh, no!
Have
I done the rain curse? Have I done the rain curse on everybody here? That was not intentional. I didn't tell you. I said I was going to hold off on those rain dances, Ben.
That's true.
I don't know if that's going to be occurring, but it's random weather. It's a random world, and trust me, well, this year alone, isn't it? Around the world, we haven't even predicted anything. I think if you want to pursue your career as a meteorologist.
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 Yeah,
there it is. Thank you very much. Yeah, English can correct the proper language. Of course, you speak it. Yeah, that would be a difficult job, wouldn't it, in 2022, going into 2023 as well, too, trying to predict the weather around the world because nobody knows what's going on.
I mean, there are some things you can do, but by and large, say it's an exercise in voodoo. Either way, it's clearly played out in Dean's favour, as the man of the rain dance himself has got a little bit of luck on his side. Now, we are, just waiting for a couple people to still connect to the lobby, and then we will be away. We made further progress from the last time.
Choose some setups too, right, Ben? Choose some setups, because did they even have wet setups? I mean, they've only been qualifying in the dry.
As everyone's been qualifying the drive. I think it's not just the setup, it's the fact that drivers have got to reacclimatize themselves to a whole different skill set for the wet driving. It's so different to control your car in the wet versus controlling your car in the dry. You've got completely different profiles for your throttle. Your downforce is going to behave a little bit differently. Your on-track grip is going to fluctuate a lot more than normal. So you got, different levels of water.
So
being
what did
behind
you change,
cars.
real quick there, Ben, as a driver, what would they be tweaking?
Well, in terms of the car itself, it's difficult to call.
More wing, like more downforce? What would they do?
I know they'd certainly be giving it a bit more wing. So you're not going to be getting the same amount of grip, mechanical grip, as you would be getting on a normal surface, like a dry. So you'd definitely be cranking out more wing to compensate for that lack of mechanical grip. That is for sure. And in terms of other parts of the car, there's not really much that you can do because it doesn't really change the bump characteristics of the circuit. Heck, not even really the ride height is going to make an effect, especially with the underbody downforce that these cars generate, is that ride height is only going to negatively affect you if you try and lift it up to clear a bit more of that water.
Aquaplaning, yeah. I was going to ask you that. So the ride height doesn't really make that much effect. And of course, we don't know, too, the predictions that how the race is going to pan out until we fully load in. We know it's going to be raining, but we don't know if it's going to dry towards the end. That means you're going to sacrifice your car for a bit of wet weather racing, and then towards the end, the drivers that have sacrificed their car for a bit of more dry racing may very well be the ones that are quickest towards the end of the race. That will be the key.
And here we go. So we're on board now, and everyone's on the formation lap. Everyone's running full wets here. You can see that it is absolutely pouring it down here in Imola.
We're almost ready to start the race as the cars take their positions on the grid, with the
Yeah, honestly, Ben, I did not do my rain dance at all. I actually wanted this one to be dry. Now, if I do want a rain dance, of course, it was always Bahrain, because I've never casted a rain race in Bahrain before in my life, and I would like that to happen before I retire the microphone from F1. But at the moment, we have to deal with the situation here in Italy. And, yep, the heavens have opened.
And here we are, as everyone lines up ready and retaining their grids from qualifying. See that Aston Martin's taking top form, first and third. Mercedes split in the two. Haas coming up a bit further back in fifth place. And those charging lights, almost to say in the strobe fashion, were replaced by fog lamp. Either way, we are ready to go. 5 red lights and the track is live. We are away. It's a really good start for the Mercedes there and the Aston Martins, as everyone is getting away. Bit of a rougher start for the Alpine down at the back. Everyone's trying to charge and get a best of a run as they can. Aston Martin's almost getting a little bit freightful, and seeing as everyone is fighting, they're managing to keep it clean and on the straight and narrow for the time being.
Absolutely brilliant racing, not to say the conditions that they're not used to here. Only qualifying dry and wet weather, and gingerly making their way around and realizing, hey, we have 32 laps to go. There's no point in risking it for the biscuit. And there is actually a bit of a Red Bull running off into the background there, but so far so good. So we do have an Aston Martin 1 and 2, and then there we have a Mercedes 3 and 4. Wow.
I'm going to say quite the turnout there, but say on board now with Locke, say in P7 for the Red Bulls right now, and has certainly made good on their charge up the field. So right now, as it stands, they are currently P7. They're on the tail of Korsgaard, and right now everyone is just trying to get a bit of clean air more than anything else. The Aston Martins have done really well, getting a clean breakaway. Kassen is holding that lead to his teammate Franklin, with Tembrinka and Tenaken chasing down behind. So everyone trying to come through, nestle into their own space, but you've got the two Alfa Romeos, Erlinghauser and Bashford, all the way down in P15 and P16.
It's just unfortunate, obviously, for Beyond de Boer. That's dropped 6 positions there, back down to P11 there after an earlier mistake, but still putting the right direction, still in this one. And you can see the Alfa Aston Martins, of course, they're making a little bit of a charge here. Wet weather is suiting these cars perfectly. They're all on the wet weather blue striped tire. And I'll give you a bit of a weather forecast further up later on into this racing track around Emilia, of course, here for round 12 of the SwiftX Racing Series. But around the moment, you can see a bit of a battle forming there, I think, with Jasper, Korsgaard. It's all going on here in P5, P6, and they're all behind E2, Lapalainen. And now it's time to brew up. Remember, no DRS is going to be activated, so relying purely on slipstream.
So purely slipstream, purely on positioning and getting a better exit alone. Of course, they do still have a little bit of dirty air to contend with, especially if they're dealing with some spray from the cars ahead, potentially. But what is mattering is they're getting that pressure on. And says Tenaken is just up ahead there, is trying to keep it under control. Locke, you see, just has to apply a little bit of opposite lock as they come in through and up the uphill. Very easy to slide the tail end out through that section, don't you think?
No casting cursing coming from you, Ben. It is very easy to do it. Trust me, I would have done it about 2 laps ago. But these are the best of the best that comes here in the SwiftX Motor Racing Series. They know what to do. They're using their NordVPNs when they need to use their NordVPNs. Unfortunately, NordVPN might give you a little bit of ERS boost, which is the only boost you're going to get. Once again, the Aston Martins are kind of running away a little bit up here. But once again, too, if it's going to be a full wet race, you can make these tires go all the way to the end if you want to.
So right now, on board with AJ Jackson, as the driver up ahead, De Boer, made a little bit of a mistake and had no choice but to concede a position to the Williams, who has made a brilliant charge up to the sharp end of the field relatively quickly. They're already back in the points, and it's just lap 3.
AJ doing a fantastic job recently. Also a little bit of a battle between, I think, Neo and Leon, of course. And now this is the thing, Leon Erlinghauser dropped 6 places, so didn't quite like the rain restarts here for the second time he's been racing here in the Swift Series. Thomas is making a run, I think, as well. Getting really, really spicy in the back of the Red Bull there, Peter Locke.
Saying just checking up ahead, we can see from the helicopter that Hardwick is putting that pressure on Locke. Locke has repeatedly lost a little bit of time, whether that's through a bit too much on the throttle, getting a little bit shifty coming out of corners. They have lost a significant chunk of time to, in fact, Korsgaard, who, as we look ahead, was almost about to seize a move on Lapalainen, but doesn't quite get it through.
Battles everywhere, of course. Thomas there, Korsgaard there, trying to get Lapalainen. You got Peter Locke trying to defend off Thomas, and AJ's charging in the background as he got past Bilbos as well. Bilbos trying to make his way back up there. Battles, of course. And, well, Mr. Casson just sits there and puts another fast lap in there and trying to break his DRS from his teammate. But it's not a worry at the moment. It's a worry of whether or not Thomas can find his way past Peter Locke there. He can't just yet. Without the DRS, it's so difficult to overtake, especially in these conditions.
Yeah, on the topic of DRS, I wouldn't really worry. Something's happened, but just behind, it looks like Cook. That was Cook. Completely down, and also... And Bilbos! And that is a full course safety car coming out, as everyone in the back end of the field has dropped off and has had a bit of an incident. Fortunately, we didn't get full capture of that, but regardless... That's full course safety car, and any gap that drivers would have been pulling out is going to immediately be nullified.
And you know for a fact at the moment, well, we know that the wet weather tyres, it'd be very, very dangerous to, I would say, to box, because you're going to bunch everybody up at the moment. There is a gap down to basically, where is it? Down to Joni in P15. Now, pit stop around here, under about 10 seconds and change under a safety car, 21 regular. So if you do box right now, if you were Will Casson, that's going to drop you down at least outside the top 10. So he's not going to risk it for the biscuit just yet. Give you a weather forecast update, my friend. Still heavy rain here for about 10 minutes.
Well, you're looking at the distancing of the field as well. It's not just a case of losing track position. It's also the issue if they got nowhere near enough mileage out of those wets to make it worth it. The pace gain would not be enough to offset any time losses from the pit stop. Now, for the bottom end of the field, who maybe have some front wing damage, be that missing or end plates, it's a lot more viable for them. But at the sharp end of the field, track position is everything, and they simply do not have the budget in terms of performance that they would gain, nor would that timing be worth it.
Leon in, Josh in, Bilbos in, Letty's in, John is in. It's a massive pit lane down there. We don't have Ted, of course. They gambled on some of the inters. Now, I know the rain's going to ease off. This could very much pay off, and why not? If you're at the back of the pack here, if you switch to these inters, and I guarantee there's a lot of them have done that right now, it may very well be a great way to gamble, because the rain is going to ease up. Whether it ease up enough, but hey, if you're back outside the top 10, give it a risk. Risk it for the biscuit is what they say, isn't it?
It is, absolutely. That's the phrase. They risk it for a biscuit. Right now we're properly in the thick of it, but it's not too far-fetched to, even if a short-term performance loss is on the table, then as maybe the rains ease up for these drivers, that it will
and Thomas has gone off. Check out Thomas has lost the front wing. We saw a little bit of notification from the race control. There's a collision. He's lost his front wing completely. There's no ghosting and none of those cheat codes enabled here in the best of the Swift Motor Racing series right now. These are the top guns. And unfortunately, Thomas is going to have to massively... He's corner cutting as well, too, trying to get that car without a front wing in pouring rain conditions back to the pit lane. And he's only got a couple more corners, thankfully, to get done. But that means he's going to lose all those places to the inter runners that have gambled now.
Not just that, but also the time that he's going to lose, purely by nature of having a front wing missing, is going to mean that any pit stop is going to have its effects dramatically increased in terms of what grid position he loses.
AJ's gone in and elected to say, I'm going inters. Not a bad... Now, AJ, we've seen, has pulled off miracles when it comes to tyre strategies. We'll see if that's going to pay out for him. He's willing to sacrifice a ton of positions and drop himself back probably around P15 on change. And that's a bit of a gamble, but once again, well, you have to gamble, don't you, if you could not attend the qualifying session and make the strategy of the weather gods at play. but we still have an Aston Martin leading 1 and 2. And, well, actually, we do have an Aston Martin 1, 2, and 3, my friend, because we have an Aston Martin safety car again.
And so that is just it. Say, Burn Mail under, getting driver of the day, whipping that safety car around the track day in, day out. Either way,
I think he's done more laps than than victories that Max Verstappen has done in the past, hasn't he?
potentially so.
That's going to be the best career of your. But if you want to be a driver in a career, you can just do that. Like, just get into that GT3 car there, and you get to turn up to every F1 race. You get to actually lead drivers around races, and he can do it for another 10, 20 years, easy peasy.
And one of the things that people forget is that, of course, these F1 cars, these absolute masterpieces of racing machinery, they make that Aston Martin look pedestrian. But that Aston Martin is driving pretty near its limit just to keep those cars under safety car speed and not bring them too slow as to overheat the engine, overheat the tyres. That thing...
He's actually told to slow down, Ben. Go ahead. Sorry.
I say, he's actually told sometimes... They say slow down, sometimes told speed up, but he's driving that thing with such skill and prowess.
And he gets to turn up to every F1 race. He gets to lead an F1 race, even though it's a safety car. Does it brilliantly. I don't think Bernard's ever lost that safety car off the track somewhere or made a mistake. I mean, he is a professional motor racing driver, of course. And he gets to do it for years and years and years, whereas we all know Formula 1 drivers, well, age is not on your side, is it? So maybe
that is an important factor.
If you're going to retire from Formula 1, maybe just switch yourself up into and then again, the FIA are never going to allow anybody else to replace Bernard, of course, unless he retires. Anyway, but it is still an Aston 1, 2, 3, of course, with the safety car. But check it out. So it's Aston Martin versus Mercedes, because with Mercedes there of Luke Tenbrinky and Jasper Ten Haken, of course, the championship leader on the wets, and remaining on the wets, as well as Lapalainen and Peter Locke. So that's going to be the key. What about Leon? Remember, the newcomer in town, Erlinghauser. He's elected to go to those inters, and soon, and this is not too bad strategy because the safety car slows the weather down because it's drying. Will the inters be the key when that safety car is pulled in?
Well, the rain is still coming down, so I'm not sure if it's optimal for the inters just yet. And looking at the timing tower, looks like Korsgaard and Jackson actually went in again. So not sure what's going on there in terms of strategy, maybe a missed call. But they're back in. And so is the safety car. Right now, all eyes are on the front of the field. It's on board with Casa now. I'm going to see if they can bring the best start that they can and try and maybe even get the jump on some of their competitors. If these two are coordinating, they can really work together to lock out that top row again.
They have to lock out both the Mercedes, of course. The Silvaras will be challenging tooth and nail. Aston Martin should be good in these conditions. It's very London-esque for UK weather. Not so much Italian weather. But Cassie will have to lead around. And you know, Luke Franklin's teammate should not be challenging him too much, but Luke has to hold off the Mercs. And here we go. Lap 7, about to be lap 8, under green flag conditions.
And there we go, everyone's away, and it's a really good getaway for Tim Brinker right now. Franklin doesn't quite get the same jump as his teammate does, managing to pull a decent gap, but Tim Brinker is immediately keeping that pressure on the back of the second Aston Martin. You see those sparks fly, even in these wet conditions, as Locke goes a little bit wide, a little bit deep, but ultimately reserves his position and keeps Bilbas on the shop and keeps him honest. Either way, looking down the field, there's going to be very little in terms of positional trading, although it looks like De Boer and Jackson are going back and forth, fighting each other, trading places left, right, and center. Jackson eventually going to win that altercation as we come out and into the second sector here. It's going to be all nails, all... The claws are out. The claws are absolutely out for these drivers now.
And the inters are not working at the moment there because it looks like Noah got past there. Erlenhauser. So the inters are not quite up to where they needed to be in this situation, but they could very well be in a couple of laps if they could keep it on the track. That's going to be the key. Bilbas is the only one that's really taking advantage of those inters in P7, but he's not really gaining too much on Peter Locke, so that's going to be the key. It's survival right now. Drive to survive and keep the car on the track. Noah now is so much quicker, absolutely so much quicker on Bilbas. You can see, so the crossover hasn't happened just yet, but I guarantee you very soon it will.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. I don't think that calling inters this early in the game was the right call. It may pay off later, but as it stands now, those inter runners are simply sitting ducks as Corby looks like he's about to demonstrate, although Bilbas is managing to keep the gap on him for the time being, in fact pulling out a little bit more of a gap. I have to wonder.
Be the crossover. Could be the crossover. E2 is also going to make a run here. Lab E2 Lapalainen. There's the wet weather battle there between the championship leader there of Jasper and Hacken, but of course there's no overtaking opportunities as easy as what you get without the DRS. So he's had to back up at the moment, but obviously go back to that battle that you saw before there, and that is definitely the wet weather battle versus the inter battle between P7 and P8. So Ferrari versus the Alpha Tauri, and Ferrari on top there. Wet weather tires are still the tires to be on.
Yeah, even while looking a little bit skittish and coming around to say the final call, looking like he was struggling to keep it straight, Ilacorpi still manages to get the run that he needs to push past Bilbas and assert P7. Right now, though, looking up ahead, it looks like quite the battle between Locke and Lapalainen. Say, between all of that fighting.
AJ's out!
And what's happened to AJ?
He's lost it out of turn 10 somewhere, so that Williams is struck there. We'll call safety car, full safety car. So now you got to be good. The decision right now for the Aston Martin is close to the pit lane entrance. Will he go in? He will, and it's going to be a double stack because Luke has followed him in. Luke is going to be held up here for sure. And the Mercedes will be also held up. Battle the pit stops right now.
The big shuffle around the
Cruz
field
down there in the pit lane. Have a look. Yeah, look at the held up. Massive held up for Luke. He's going to sit there and wait and wait and wait. And time when they're all bunched up after the previous safety car is going to be murderous. And look what's happened there. Bilbas goes up into P2. Noah elected not to change those tires. And Luke Franklin now is running P13.
A rough one, but such is the nature of the double stack. He's still beating his primary rival because you look behind Tanakan P14. So he's still done exactly what he needed to do. Kassan coming out slightly ahead of that Mercedes of Tembrinka as well. So it's not like the Astons are out of the fight. Yesterday, Franklin did drop down.
Well, Tanakan got held up, remember, because Brinky was in first. That was the thing. So they both, remember, it was a double stack on both the Aston Martins and the Mercedes, and somebody had to get the wrong end of the knife, per se, on that one, and that was definitely Luke Franklin and Jasper Ten Haken, because they dropped to P12, 13, and 12. And that's because, of course, the double stacks. But then they had to change, didn't they? I'm just surprised why Noah elected to stay out, and he may very well be a sitting duck, because I'm getting the weather forecasts saying track is drying and drying and drying.
I'll say the rain is still coming down, but it doesn't look like it's coming down as heavily, so we might see that crossover soon. Ilacorpi, I think, just took the simple call of, I have an opportunity here for track position, and track position is king, so I'm going to take it. I think that's about as deep as it went before he committed to the decision, or just simply didn't have a chance before he clocked the fact that the safety car was coming out.
I got to give it to Bilbas, because he essentially is leading this race. He's taking this pit stop. He's got the inters on. He started on the wets. Took it early on lap 4. Got rid of those wet tires. Went the first gamble. He started in P14. Currently running in P2. And Noah has gone from wets to wets. And Noah may very well be a sitting target as this track dries up. That's good. And of course, look at that. Erlinghauser. Well, newcomer in town. Certainly very clever and very smart for the Alfa Romeo team. From P8 up into P3. Another, there's advantages. Of course, Johnny took that gamble there for the McLaren. P15 up into P4. Lenny Cook, amazing. We know Lenny has pace. Also took that gamble early. Currently sitting at P5.
But it's looking good for the top end of the field. I think that first stop, that first safety car period, I wasn't feeling very confident in the inter runners. But with this second safety car essentially making that degradation argument and that timing argument moot, as the track visibly looks like it's becoming clearer with every passing minute. So the rain is slightly less dense, at least from my view. This could be
no
in the Inter's favour.
Yeah, there's no puddles on track. Now, generally, you know, in the F1 2022 games, you see puddles, that's wet. If you don't see puddles, that's Inters. And believe it or not, this track is going to dry out towards the end of the race, and this is actually stalling the rain. I'm seeing in about 10 to perhaps 15 minutes, we're going to go dry. So maybe we'll see them. Pace car is going to be in, or pace car safety car, because they do too much Indy casting these days. It's either way. It's still hope to be safety. But then again, the Ferrari, we're going to be gambling on this. I expect Bilbas is going to be running past that Ferrari very soon as they make their way into turn 2, 3, and 4 of the green flag conditions. 11 of 32. So 1/3 through the race there. Ben, are you excited?
I'm certainly nervous, that's one thing. But here we go. The last runner on full core wet tyres as the safety car comes in. Noah Ilakorpi trying to get the run out on the competition. Does manage to get a good getaway. In fact, makes a great getaway there. It looks like leaving Erlinghauser potentially to take a big run on the AlphaTauri if he places cards right. Doesn't quite get a run done there. So they've got Johnny just behind, trying to assert a position in the same swing. Everyone, and you can see looking down, it's in fact a little bit of jostling between Cook and Hardwick. Teammates are going to trade positions. Is that intentional? I don't know. It looked a little bit like he was just sort of pushing for that top spot.
I'm up to eat my microphone at the moment there because those are actually Leon. Erlenheiser's got past. So the battle the enters course, and there's a massive battle coming in there. There's actually a couple of spins course guards out. Not quite sure there's going to be a battle, but there's still a battle between Leon and Johnny. That's a battle for P2, P3. Johnny's actually lost a couple of places there. Thomas Hardwick is in the mix in the wars. And believe it or not, Noah is still in P1 there in those wet weather tires and made him work. And he's maybe like making me eat my microphone at the moment because they are still definitely in play. Lenny Cook putting some pressure on. And yep, course guard, but we are green, go here in Imola.
A drag race for Erlinghauser and Hardwick. They are keeping each other honest as we come through the final sector. Hardwick is not giving him an inch to breathe. And as it stands, we are not even halfway through the race. Given that, and everyone being on the inters, bar Ilakorpi, who's managed to pull out a second, I think Ilakorpi is going to have to think twice about his strategy. He may have scuppered himself here, considering that he has got, yes, the full wet, but also the life of that full wets are going to be running out, and everyone is on mostly fresh inters.
Yeah, keep it on those times. He's outside the DRS, but there is no DRS, of course, still. He's 1.3, 1.2 maintaining it, but look at behind him. There's a massive train at the moment of cars. They're all within milliseconds. E2, Lapalainen making a run. Perhaps they're around Casson. And you know, Casson was the man that put that baby on pole. And he has the fastest lap at the moment. But the problem is he's got nowhere to go. They're all in traffic. It's like the M2 highway on a Monday morning going to work, isn't it, in the UK? But it's fun.
Yes, a complete congestion, and for someone like Casson, it's the last place that you want to be, especially when you're getting pressure from the rear from someone like Lapalainen. Very fast runner, very consistent runner as well to boot. So the last person you really want to be dealing with.
I was just seeing Thomas, Lenny Cook, as well as Johnny. That's once again, no DRS is enabled, so you're going to risk it somewhere along here. Belbus has got down to 3 seconds, and Noah's in big trouble now. Those wet tires are not performing for the Ferrari, and he's under massive attack from all the inters behind him. And trust me, there is 14 inters behind him. What can the Ferrari driver do now?
He's really just a sitting duck. You can see him even peel to the inside. He knows he can't do anything and has no choice but to yield to Bilbas as they take the top spot. And I think that this is sort of beginning the end for Noah here. He's on the wets, only driver to do so. Track is visibly getting drier, or at least is set to get dry very, very soon. I think the writing may be on the wall.
Yeah, I think he's got, look at this, he's going to be backing him. It's going to be dangerous for everybody else behind there. You see Leon trying to get past Thomas, trying to get past Lenny's trying to build him up. He's backing the pack up at the moment with that straight. Look at this. He can't even get the pack's traction down. The rear end slipping and sliding in the Ferrari. It's been a bad call. Unfortunately, it's mirroring really the Ferrari strategy. Look at that. Can't even barely keep that car on track. You got a box, my friend. Box, 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 box. If I was in the Ferrari garage.
Yes, they really have to feel for him. It's after coming from such a position of dominance.
Lenny's spun. Lenny's gone around somewhere.
So that's going to be Cook there. dropping right down to the bottom end of the field after being closely knit with their teammate. I have to wonder, did they get just a little bit too close in terms of space?
It's because they're all bunched up after the wet weather tire there of Noah. And Noah can't even keep it on track anymore. Somehow he's still doing good on you, Noah. I don't know, you're driving and surviving right now, and you don't need to tune in Netflix. If you don't get Netflix, of course, get some NordVPN. You'll find Netflix. But he's about to be murdered down the main straight there from Leon. Easily peasily should take him into turn 1, and he does. But good on you, but I still have to give it to the Ferrari driver for holding on. Ferrari driver's praying for a safety car right now. Absolutely praying.
Can only hope. Because even with more drivers making spins and having issues, I believe it's a second safety car. Was that second safety car brought out by CosGuard? I can't remember. Or was it CosGuard after?
Oh, side by side. Once again, there's Thomas on the outside, confident in the tires and confident in the green stripes. It's a done. But this is the thing, it's bunching everybody up. This is very, very, you got to remember, we're watching him, but there's also these other cars. We saw there a little bit of a spin there from Lenny, contact, because it's bunched up big time. And you know, when you're wheel-to-wheel racing like that, and no DRS and ERS is enabled, well, ERS is enabled, of course, but lots and lots of action happening. And that's it, you got to clear the Ferrari right now. And I'll tell you what Bilbas did, mate, 1.3 seconds and change leading this race. Look at the Ferrari, cannot get the power down corner. They're still doing a good job. Tokyo drifting style here in Emilia.
Thing is, I think confidence hits the nail on the head. I don't see Noah having that confidence in his Ferrari right now. He's got near full battery. He's not really able to use it because he just cannot get the power down. No matter what he does.
He stayed out another lap.
I think he's just
praying for a safety car.
He's just fighting to the very end. Really cannot afford to pit. See, he knows that if he pits, that it is eventually race over. So the best he can do is try and preserve what positions he does have, as he's now under attack from pole position, as we see Locke behind go deep into the gravel. Going to be side by side with the Aston Martin. There's going to be contact, a little bit of a concertina effect, but luckily Tim Brinker manages to dodge a bullet from that Haas as it tries to regain control, although it has put it straight into striking distance.
Yeah, that's Lapalainen behind him now. So Noah, Cassie got past there, and here we go. Lapalainen has to trust in his tires. Look at that. Noah's not giving up, but Noah has to yield because there's no way. He's actually lost 2-3 places. Both the Mercs almost got through. In fact, they have. And look at that. Now Jasper Ten Haken is on the back there of the Ferrari, and Noah all of a sudden has gone from essentially P1 to P9 in a matter of 2 laps, but still somehow bold and braving in here on those wet tires.
As they're fighting ultimately what is a losing battle. He's Ten Haken right behind now. You can see trying to squeeze left, squeeze right, trying to get a move done. Manages to get along the outside and carry the speed, knowing that Ilakopi doesn't have the room, but it's going to be too much. It's going to get dicey as he's going to get round. Luckily, that is not going to be a race ender, but I think that is as good a message as any. That Ilakopi, he just needs to go back to the pits, and go back into the pits he does.
And what a spin right in the final corner, of course. So he goes into the pit lane and realizes now, I wonder if the Ferrari team radio have been calling him in for the last couple of laps, but either way, he will get those inters slapped on. In fact, I wouldn't, and we'd be surprised if we take a gamble to go to dries at this point, because it is going to start drying up soon. And if you're going to risk it for the biscuit that much, which is exactly what he did on the wet weather tires, yeah, you might as well risk it for some dry tires, but that track is still pretty wet, my friend. But Bilba's leading this race there from, and once again, Erlinghauser, newcomer in town in the series, performing, and ahead of Thomas in P3.
Say both Bilbas and Erlinghauser are newcomers, so for them to lead the race at this point, what a brilliant achievement from them. I have to wonder, thinking on the side of Iacorpi, maybe it was a case of his strategist, to say his main engineer, telling him to box. Maybe he thought that he was just trying to invent. I can imagine that Iacorpi was telling him, stop inventing, not now, not now. But this time there was no invention to speak of. It was pure facts. And this time it could have been a little case of, say, the engineer who cried wolf, to say, enough bad calls, your driver doesn't listen to you. So when you make the good call, it's too late.
it just reminds me of real life, doesn't it, with the Ferraris? Just like what's going on with their strategies. It's just so sad to see that. E2 Lapalainen there, putting a massive pressure there on the McLaren. Can't get an overtake through turns 2 and 3, but he's going to try whatever he possibly can. Lapalainen, we know, has pace there for the house, and they're definitely battling it out in the championship at the moment. Here we go. Running up on the inside there, wheel to wheel. You know that McLaren has a little bit of an advantage here. You know, he's flashing. Well, it's very difficult to say what the ERS is because they're flashing the light anyway under wet weather conditions. But Lapalainen wants to find a way around the McLaren in 4P5.
So he's just trying to get his nose around, see what he can do here. We've got that beautiful helicopter shot, just giving us a glimpse of what is going on down there. But even, say, coming into the second sector, we saw Lapalainen get right on the tail of that McLaren, just get a little bit too aggressive with the throttle and having to back off slightly. You can see the little micro movements, the little shuffles of the car, that he got really close to getting that move done, but was just too eager on the throttle by maybe like a 1/10 of a second, and that unfortunately does come back to bite, as E2 has yet to take the position as of now.
He got to get something done here. It's easier said than done, isn't it? But here we go, straight line speed, gambling at this one, side by side, turn 1 coming up at the moment, and it looks like the Haas driver has definitely secured the deal. Because Yona actually outbraked himself. It might be on a massive pressure there from Luke Franklin in the background there by doing it. But E2 Lapalainen up in P5.
Yeah, so speaking of Franklin, he's going to immediately keep that momentum that Johnny lost and is going to try and push to see if they get position. Doesn't quite get it. Has no choice but to back off, sadly. But for them, at least, it's a statement of intent. It's saying, you are not out of the woods yet. Yes, I'm under pressure from Tibrinka right now, but that does not mean I'm not coming for you.
But the Williams are coming right now for Luke Franklin. You got to remember both those Williams drivers. So Ten Brinky and Jasper Ten Hacken. There's 10s in there somewhere at the moment. There's 10s between both of the McLaren driver and Mercedes drivers, my apologies, because they are behind the Aston Martins. And Larson has retired from the session. I think Larson has binned it somewhere. I think, if I'm not mistaken, out of, well, that's down the main straight. That's the safety car.
Safety car number 3.
So what do you do if you're Bilbas leading this race? 14 lap inters. The rain is starting to dissipate. But will it be enough? He does not elect a pit stop. Anybody else going to follow the pit stop? No. Keep those inters on. They can go to the end. Well, no. Yeah. E2. Lapalainen has elected to go in now. This is going to be a massive gamble if you go to soft tires right now. But anything is possible.
I think, being truthful, switching tires to a slick at this point is too much of a gamble. It is still raining out there.
He's gone to mediums. Lapalainen has gone to the medium tires, the dry tire, the only one bold and brave right now for the Haas driver to call this strategy. Now, this is interesting because I'm seeing in my weather forecast 5 to 10 minutes of light rain. Now, remember, we might eat 5 minutes of a safety car. We might eat 5 minutes. Now, that could be something come and play. He's going to be a sitting target, no doubt. Not just him, Joshua Bashford has also elected to go onto those dry tires. This is why you tune in right now to the SwiftX Motor Racing Series, presented by Digital Motorsports and, of course, NordVPN, because of the fact that everything can happen under changeable conditions. Look at that weather forecast conditions that you're showing right now. It's still raining, yes, but will it be raining in 5 minutes' time? Will the safety car be out enough time to dictate? I mean, that's what you'd be doing right now, isn't it? As Lapalainen, you'd be like praying a safety car stays out for another lap and another lap. What do you think, man?
Well, if I was in his position, I would have to be very confident. As you can see, he bins it almost into the wall there. Unfortunately, say his luckily, if it wasn't for the safety car, that would have easily been many positions lost. But you see him squirreling around on the track so much. You see him sliding almost around every corner. There he goes again. I have to wonder just how much of a Hail Mary is this move. And the same goes for Bashford down in P12. I feel like this is such a drastic move, given the track's current state, given that rain is still coming down. If the track was wet and there was no rain, I get it. I understand. but you can see he's there immediately abandoning that call and going back into the pits. Yeah, I think it was just a little bit too much of a Hail Mary there. I think it's a bit too optimistic.
As exactly Martin Brother would say, it's a day late, dollar short on that one. And I'm sorry, Jack, there. Jack has called E2 to win.
Oh, no. Is he going one further?
He's not saving a penalty?
He's going for the softs.
Wow, that's a massive gamble. He's going to be last on the field here. He has to catch up. He has to catch up drastically. Now, they are pretty spread out. So we may see the safety car at another one. Jack, you're calling E2 to win. But Jack, give me your reasons why out there in the chat, and thank you very much for tuning in. We'd love to hear your opinion about that one, because everybody in the field, the 12 drivers are on the inters. Only Joshua and E2 that are last, but with the tires that may work if the rain stops here in Italy.
That's what they have to beg and pray on, is that the rain does stop, the track does dry in time for those mediums and softs to start becoming useful. They have a bit of a saving grace in the form of the safety car to get them back to the end of the field. But when they are under race conditions, they better hope that at least the rain has stopped coming down, because if it hasn't, they are in such big trouble.
And Bilbus is going to be praying right now that the rain still resumes, because that's a fantastic job, isn't it, from Mr. Bilbus. He's not been in these places before in this championship. He's from P14, currently running in P1 with a perfect strategy. Now he does have... He's boxed. He's boxed. They're boxing. Him, Thomas, a few drivers. I don't think they're going to softs. I think they're going to soft spends. What's going on?
I don't understand how they come to these decisions, but if it plays out for the best, maybe Bashford and Lapalainen were the drivers that came, and just maybe that is the straw that broke the pit team's back. Maybe seeing one driver go out on the medium, one driver go out on the soft is all it needs in terms of motivation for the other drivers on the following lap to say, actually, you know what, let's give this a try. Now, there is a dry line on these circuits, but my worry is that the dry line is effective. The dry line is good. But if you are in the position of these soft, these medium runners, you're going to have to deviate from that dry line in order to get a move done. And just how much faith are you willing to put in those dry tires to keep you gripped up when you are merging into and out of the much wetter sections of the track?
Well, I'd be saying, as Lars says, sorry for crashing, Lars. It's okay, mate. And, enjoy this race as much as possible. I'm sure you'll be loving to enjoy this race. But guess what? We have 5 drivers on inter tires. We have a spun car there. That's Joshua. Joshua could not get a heat in the tires. He's going to drop it. And the safety car's in this lap, so no, Mikey, no. It's just going to turn down into an Abu Dhabi situation. I don't know. But cars are running off the track left, right, and center. Joshua's running around here. It's up to the Inters to hold off for as long as possible. They're going to be preying on something. Who knows what's going on? But guess what? I can tell you one thing. SwiftX Motor Racing producers Leon is in the lead of this race, and he has to try to hit the loud pedal as loud as possible without spinning as we get green flag.
Well, right now, Erlinghauser's in a tough spot. He's controlling the pace of the race. He's got some fairly worn inters at this point, but it's 10 laps to go. And if a safety car comes out again, he could potentially be in a good spot. But right now, getting a good getaway, really setting that race pace as 2 queues start to form. Illicorpi and Locke battling and locking horns. It's going to be the 2 of them, but it's going to be De Boer making a big surge around the outside, as is Johnny. Erlinghauser really not getting the exit he otherwise would have wanted and really seeming to struggle. Now Illicorpi's going for a stab, going side by side, but Erlinghauser managing to keep it for now. Although with a little bit of contact.
Yeah, they've got 5 seconds immediately on the dry tires. The dry tires aren't working, but this is about up front, of course, at the P5. The conditions there, and here we go. Peter Locke, they're running on in Leon. That's a crazy battle, of course, is forming, and there's a 7-second gap at the moment. So obviously, still the dry tires are not paying off for now, but it could be a different situation. Joshua's gone on the pit lane. Lenny Cook's gone on the pit lane. This is the battle for P1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5. They're on the inters.
I say these Inter runners are really in a good spot. Now, if the track does dry up, then of course it goes back into the dry runners territory. But by that point, I think the Inter runners will have enough of a gap. I mean, look at Hardwick. Even on the softs, he's already 10 seconds behind the Inter runners. So with the case of those guys up at the sharp end of the field, if it gets dry, they're in trouble. But is the dry runners going to be enough of a motivation, or say enough of a grip increase to get that time back? I don't know.
Well, you just had Bjorn set the fastest lap of the race on Inter tires. So, and Thomas now 12 seconds and change down the road there on the dries. It's an early gamble. Yeah, 24 of 32, so maybe enough time. But remember, it is a 21-second pit stop time around here if you have to go in for a regular pit stop. And at the moment, that's still okay, I'd have to say, for Thomas Hardwick. He's preying on the track drying up as much as possible. But still, I'm seeing purple sectors tooth and nail here for the Inters because the McLaren driver in P2 currently set the fastest first sector. So yes, 15 seconds now gap there for the soft runners. Wow, strategies at play. Welcome along, SwiftX Motor Racing Series. And look at the battle here, forming between Peter Locke there and Leon Erlinghauser.
Erlinghauser going for a resurgence on that Red Bull. So a little bit of chaos further up the field. Johnny having to go wide and take the runoff. And amidst all of that, Erlinghauser's managed to get P4 back on the Red Bull. Now, is he going to go for an immediate counter-attack? It's seeming like he's squaring up to try and get as much of the slipstream as possible. He's really trying to keep it close, but I don't think he's going to go for it this time. He's opting to save the battery and maybe bide his time for when the track and the cars come a little bit closer together here.
Ben, this is it. 20-second gap now to Thomas. That's it. Thomas is now 20, almost 22 seconds. And the only reason why we're talking about Thomas is because Thomas is the only one with dry tires. So the leaders now, and that's beyond debate. Well, then again, Thomas is 22 seconds behind Peter Locke. This is it. It's not going to pay off. The dry tires has not paid off. Then the Inter runners now have a pit stop in hand if they choose to elect to use it. 25 or 32. But can they? Will they? That's the key. But the top five, Beyond DeBoer, leading this one by 1.2 seconds at the moment from the McLaren.
Can't help but feel like right now, this is essentially feeling like a multi-class race. You've got the soft and medium runners and the lower class, and then the top five all on Inters. So making arguably the right strategy call, whichever way you slice it. Because like you said, they essentially have a free pit stop and still have some pocket change to keep their positions. It's utterly... I have to question, we're talking about it being a bit of a Hail Mary, and I think, like we said, it was just too early to make that call. But even with the safety cars stalling the race, and as you see, that is going to be, I think that was Cook being lapped and having to go onto the gravel to yield to the faster cars. I have to wonder, is that even with all the safety cars slowing down the race, allowing the weather to roll, it was just, I say, it's too ambitious.
Yeah, if you were at the back of the field, you would take that gamble. But look at that. Beyond the board just set the fastest lap of the race on the Inters on lap 26. When you can see the track is a little green, a little wet, whatever. But now 27 gap, 27 second gap there from Peter Locke and Thomas Hardwick. That's, yeah. And Thomas has a hard work to get done there on the soft tires, which are not gambling. And now they're still battling it out, of course, outside like P6. On the soft runners, so they had their own battle, but obviously up front there, that's the Inter battle between the top five drivers. A little bit of a DRS and not DRS broken or not, but there's still no DRS activated, so it doesn't really matter too much. But Beyond the Ball, well, he's starting P5 currently at the moment, dominating in P1. If he can hold it off for a little bit longer, but look at Noah in P3 at the moment. He's the closest he can at the back of the McLaren, challenging the Ferrari versus McLaren on lap 26. About to start lap 27. He's about half a second down.
As they're trying to get that gap in. As the fastest lap of the race goes to Ilacorpi right now, and is doing very well to keep that McLaren, well, keeping him stay on his toes. He can't afford to be making any mistakes. You know, the minute he gets even a little bit too excited to jump on that throttle, then that Ferrari is going to be right there to take the move and take it to him. But saying that, it overextends, goes onto the gravel, and is now just like a script being flipped. Ilacorpi drops back and is now potentially going to be in the firing line of Erlinghauser.
He will be, and I'm just wondering at the moment, is there enough time? So there's about 5 laps and change to go. Rain has stopped, but a 32-second gap down there. This is, I think the gamble for staying the Inters may very well have paid off. We'll see. And you got to you know what's even more interesting? To let you know they're Ben and everybody else at the moment. E2 Lapalainen, second in championship. Jasper Ten Hacken, first in the championship, 11 and 12.
I think it was just that bad strategy call that really just completely shuffled up the order in the way that it has. And I think it was like a domino effect to say seeing such fast and consistent runners taking a dry tire was all the convincing that they needed. Because I don't think all of the drivers here have an engineer. I think some of them are just running in complete isolation or are in with an engineer, but they completely have them blocked out. So I think seeing a driver on the dry was all the convincing that they needed. But even if that was an unfounded, say, or a misguided call, it goes to show these drivers have trust in their opponents, or they have the faith in them at least to know it's like, okay, if they make this call, they've got to have some grounding for it. That's the expectation.
Yeah, local yellow there caused, but so far beyond the boys, it's just rolling away with this Haas car. E2, I believe, has been overtaken by Jasper. That's actually a little great battle to look at, perhaps if you want to go back to the soft runners, because they're side by side. And remember, they're side by side this championship as well. So every single point makes a difference. And are they going to yield their soft runners in a track that's clearly quicker on the Inters? But don't let them know about that, because they have to battle on what they have at the moment. And that's called 4 red stripe tires.
They're just trying to get on the best line that they can. There's a dry line of the circuit, and they're fighting for possession of it. Side by side, corner after corner. Lapalainen is going to have the inside, but isn't going to be able to get a move. Get a little bit of a squeeze there from that Mercedes. They're keeping each other sharp and honest as they get through. It's going to be a little bit of a sideways slide, though, for Lapalainen, and that's going to be all the mistake that Tanaka needs to secure that move.
And can you believe, Ben, right now in this championship, and we're in round 12, that they're battling just for perhaps even a chance of getting a point into the top 10? Because they're outside the top 10.
So this is a battle for pride and pride alone. And I think they know it. I think that's why they were going so hard and going tooth and nail. So like at the end of the day, if we conk out, we've got nothing to lose here.
And Luke has a penalty, but only 3 seconds, and Jasper's down by 5 seconds. So Jasper might not score a point. Ichid Lapalainen might not score a point. Unfortunately, Lenny will score 3-second penalty. But beyond the ball now has been pulled in there by John. So this is new. And I have to give it to the McLaren driver at the moment from P15. Fastest lap at the moment and doing fastest laps. Currently running just behind Beyond the Ball, who started in P5. Can the McLaren pull off a miracle here and take Bjorn to win this race? Now he has a few laps up his sleeves. On the local yellow called there, and looks like a stopped car of, I think it's Lenny Cook. Should not affect this race as ever a start lap 29. What do you think? Can the McLaren reel in Beyond the Ball?
I think it's going to be tight, but I don't know if they have the time. It's a tire wear thing. It's just a making up the gap thing. And while the track is now starting to dry up, I have to wonder who has the more worn tires, because that's going to be the deciding factor here. And Beyond the Ball is just absolutely unstoppable right now.
He wants to win for the Haas team, and he needs to win for the Haas team. He's been doing a great job. Started P5. Beyond the Ball is always there. That's why he never will mess with the Bears, right? There you go, Bjorn. I'm sorry, mate. I had to go throw his puns out. He's maintaining that 1.1 inch. Oh, no! I've cursed him! I'm sorry, my friend. I just cursed you. You got the 3-second penalty. And now he's in big trouble because he could lose this one to the McLaren driver. He could still hold off Noah, perhaps. He could still hops Noah as Luke puts in a banker lap there. And that's it. Well, Luke Franklin, of course, on the medium tires. This is the crossover play right now, but I mean, day late, dollar short, isn't it? It's too late now for the soft runners.
I say it's just a little bit too late there. Say And Brinker dropping right down, just goes straight into the gravel, it looks like. Not sure what happened there with them. But to have their teammate having to take avoiding action even as they are dropping like a rock down the field. But eyes on Peter Locke right now as he's trying to make a challenge on Erlinghauser, trying to get back that P4.
Got to do something, but he's got penalties as well too, Peter, so he's got to remember that. And I wonder how much Leon's going to put up a fight. No, Leon lifts him through, and that's clever. Leon spun, but why did Leon lift him? Leon lifted him because he didn't get the momentum switch through there on the soft tires. And that's cost him big time. He's 26 laps on those inters. Oh, I feel for him after such a great race finishing in P4 last round there for Erlinghauser. And now he's going to lose that place to Peter Locke. And Peter Locke had the penalty, so he would have had it. And now he can't even get any momentum or traction on it. Thomas is about 36 seconds down the road. So get that car back up to speed, mate. You still can hold off in P5.
So we're looking up the sharp end of the field. We got to say Johnny, and we have De Boer right now fighting hard.
Johnny doesn't need to worry about this at the moment, does he? Because this is simple corner cutting penalties. You're not going to get them removed from beyond the ball.
And yet he's still fighting because this is a battle of pride just as much as it is a battle of position. You can see him. He's getting within a couple
and
of
the
tenths.
cast is spun as well, too. Look at that. Aston Martin's now, what, P8 and P9. But here it is. Here's Johnny time to... Johnny number 5 is alive, and here he goes into turn 1. He wants it. There's also somebody into the pit lane. He has to swing around there and not hit it. Whoa! He's got the lead of this race. He has this race winning bag. It's the final lap of the race. The McLaren driver of Johnny is done and got it done. And wow, he should, well, you'd imagine his heart rate right there through the roof there for the McLaren driver.
Oh, that's such a scary move. That could have ended so badly there for the McLaren. Such a move of bravery. So he had to full commit to his line at that point. And you know that that could have ended in something far more catastrophic. But he just missed that car by what looks like hairs, getting it round, and yet still secures the move on that Haas. What a move from the McLaren.
And Leon has actually like 26 laps on those inters are failing big time because he's lost another place. Luke Franklin now obviously in the tires, and that's it. So Leon is actually going to have to box and lose a ton of places, but give it to Johnny. Give it to Johnny. From P15, this could be his first race victory, and it should be his first race victory here of the SwiftX series. In changeable conditions, wets, inters, and enters. He gonna be able to do it. Couple more corners. There it is. He's done it. Congratulations. You're a race winner in Italiana of Imola.
And what a way to win it. Say, to charge from literally almost the complete bottom of the field to come to win the race through strategy, through not putting a foot wrong in the driving department, and to secure a win like that. What a drive there. What a drive is all I can say.
Can you imagine how hyped up he would be in that car right now, Ben? You know that. When you get your first race win in a series, it feels good, doesn't it? It feels really, really good.
When saying that, down the bottom end of the field, or say in the dry running end of the pack, we had, say, Bill Bastard going for a last minute move. Franklin tried to get a bit of a move around just in the last dying seconds, but it was not meant to be. So Kazan, Ten Hacken, and Tembrinka coming around to finalize the moves that they made, but in a call of strategy, say strategy, the biggest decider here is going to be Johnny taking the win here at Imola.
Yeah, I know that this graphic's going to show the driver of the day going to Noah, but unfortunately, I have to disagree with that. This McLaren driver from P15 up into P1, and that's not a usual name that we would be calling, isn't it? In a race to say to win. But I'll tell you what, right now, victory celebrations are definitely done there for the McLaren driver. Well, this series is starting to heat up, of course, and we like to see different winners and losers and everybody. But the McLaren driver has done it. Congratulations. You are the winner of the pineapple of all pineapple pizzas here in Imola.
His dress is on the podium, and for the crowd, It's a solid win for McLaren and a solid win for Johnny. And what a strong offering to say, come in out of nowhere and just deliver the goods.
Norwegians, my friend, if you like to read for those grid results, you don't mess with the Norwegians. They drive in any conditions.
Amen to that. And there we go. So looking at your grid, your final standings, it's going to be Johnny taking the win here for McLaren, with Noah coming in for P2. Say, despite the chaos, and Noah, we didn't think that he would sort of make it out alive with that wet call, and yet comes back to win P2. Nobody can really be counted out here in SwiftX. And then taking the third spot is going to be Bjorn de Boer in the Haas post penalty, getting dropped down, but it's nothing to be worried about because it's still a very strong podium. And you can see everyone else clocking in on the timesheets, with strangely both the Williams, both of them knocking out of the running here today. Now, I was not expecting the Williams to both be knocked out. I was expecting maybe one, because as I say, as great of a driver Jackson is, we know that his inconsistency is his greatest downfall. But
I also like the gamble of Bilbas. Remember, he finished in P5, the best of the actual dry tires, to take that gamble towards the end, because obviously everybody that finished in the top 4 finished on those inters. Hey, yeah, exactly, Ben. Well, we had to calculate race strategies at the moment. This is where you earn your money as an engineer, isn't it?
yeah, and say that those calls are really what make it. Let's say the big calls and the big decision, because you think the entire of the race almost does rely on you. Yes, the driver is a big instrument of taking that win home, but you have to be the one guiding him. You are their eyes. It's almost like you are, say, their co-driver, but with infinitely more information at their fingertips to make those judgment calls, to say when to go into the pits, to say when to push, to say when to defend and help out your team. They play such a big role, and more of a role that we really come to appreciate in the sports. They deserve a lot more credit than they get.
They get credit because they are driving. And this is the great thing about the championship. You had the Top Guns, all right, lap a line, finishing outside the points there. You had, what is it? Anyway, we have obviously the, drivers everywhere, all over the place. And this is what you like to see. If you want to win races, it's not always about pure pace. It's always about strategy, changeable conditions. Remember, we started this race on wet tires. We went to inters. Some gambled on the dries, did not work. Some gambled on staying on the inters, did work. That is how you win a race in changeable conditions.
It's how you know that you're setting yourself up for successes. Sometimes going against the grain, like we saw. Soft and medium tires came out, and immediately 2/3 of the grid followed suit. But going against the grain were those 5 inter runners, and they were the ones who won out today. But speaking of, I think we should talk to some of those inter runners now, because we've got a couple of people in fact waiting in the box there, and we're going to see if we can get a little bit of a chat to him. So first person we're going to talk to is none other than the Ferrari runner themselves. Noah, how are you feeling? Talk us through your race, like how you felt.
Of course, I feel great after getting podium after quali. Not so great. Was clearly last, invalidated my lap time, so that went kind of poorly. And especially after being the only one who stayed on to the inters again and falling to last again, or second last, I don't really remember. To come back and get P2 is really just amazing. And I don't really understand why the other guys pitted for slicks, because the track was clearly not dry enough.
But no, this has paid off for you, my friend, because you got a hurl of points there from Jasper that finished way down behind you. So exactly, we don't understand why they did it, but you did it. P13 qualified didn't quite deliver you the performance, my friend, but hey, race day is where it pays the points.
Yes, of course.
Yeah,
I love how cool, calm, and collected those Finnish drivers are, aren't they?
Also, I can't help but feel it's like, even though your race was almost feeling like it was on a yo-yo, you say you're at bottom of the field, top of the field, bottom of the field, top of the field again, and you say you still came out P2, still got those much needed, much deserved points. But how do you sort of keep your cool in those kind of situations?
I don't know. I don't. I just try to not get any emotions during race. Stay calm, and that's it.
Well, sometimes it can be as simple as that. Well, so either
He's
way,
the Iceman, isn't he?
yes, the ice comes
No.
out, and you get what you need to done. So you have a clear objective, and it clearly worked out in favor of you today, mate. Now,
And
great
real quick,
stuff.
real quick, Noah, do you think he could have caught the Norwegian driver there of Janema? Because he's just across the border from you, but or a couple of borders, but his pace to yours tonight?
I think I could have overtaken him just before. Like at some point he started getting away really quickly, but I think just as the safety car came in, I had way more pace than him. I could have overtaken him there, but he had a bit more straight line pace, so I didn't want to go do a huge dive bomb and risk my good points finish. So I think I could have overtaken him, but I don't know. Also, I'm hearing rumors that he might be getting reported for some sort of penalty, but I don't quote me on that.
We'll let Stuart sort that one out later. Exactly. We'll have to deal with the situation it is, but you will certainly damage limitation, of course, to Jasper Ten Haken in the championship. And that's key. You may very well pass Alex in this championship because Alex unfortunately could not be here tonight. So that's a great way just to make your way up there for the Ferraris. Good job there.
Thank you.
And there you go. So take some much needed rest, and so of course we've got the week's break next week, and that's it. Earned the break, earned the points, did very well out there today, mate. Well done.
Thank you.
And there we go. That is, so of course, the Ferrari runner. And unfortunately, that is going to be the only time that we have. It's going to be the only driver who's available to talk to us today. But let's look forward. Let's keep the momentum going, as so many drivers did. And let's keep the momentum going moving forward. And looking at the rest of the calendar. So as a reminder, folks, we will be having a week's break. This is the end of Split 3. And at this point, everyone takes a bit of a week's break, takes a bit of time to recharge and get themselves some needed rest from racing so that we can come in to the final split sprightly and bring in their A game in the climactic parts of the season.
Yeah, Ben, and we have to remember, of course, CosAnimeDesigns, Digital Motorsports, a massive fan and sponsor there. Of course, Zifod and Grid Finder, if you want to find everybody, drivers, commentators like Ben and myself or whatever. And of course, if you want to, once again, as we mentioned earlier, watch some of those fantastic shows around the world there by switching your VPNs where you need NordVPN. We'll take a break, of course. Split 4. There is some little internal decisions that are going on as we don't know what will happen for the rest of the season because of some of the key players, unfortunately, having technical issues and personal issues and stuff like that. But you want to find out, you have to click that little Discord button down there. And if you want to sign up and race, absolutely. New seasons are coming, many tiers, all the action. If you want Ben and I to either casting curse or casting bless you, well, you have to sign up the SwiftX, right, Ben? Because, hey, look at this, another fantastic race. A little bit more exciting than it was in Mexico for the F1, right?
And so, well, definitely is going to bring some excitement, going to bring some spice. And as we sort of get into the break and we sort of start to make those decisions, we will be certainly keeping you informed no matter what happens. We'll be keeping it fresh and honest, and we will be keeping it SwiftX. But for now, as we head into the week's break, you've been all amazing. I've been Ben Satchford, been with Dean Biggles, and we will see you next time.